The purpose of this video is to explain and then demo the installation of a connector, which is an external software component required by many of the scheduler integrations, like Automic or Control-M. The connector is a small component that usually sits on a third-party system and connects to the AAI server to deliver the events and definition data. For this video, we're going to use the integration into a Broadcom scheduler solution, Automic Automation, as an example. However, we need to stress one important point. AAI supports integrations into several automation products, Control-M, AutoSys, Tidal, and many more. The integration methods and their underlying technologies vary greatly from one scheduler to the next. As a result, what you'll learn in this lesson may not apply to you, unless of course your scheduler of choice is Automic Automation. We have catalog course offers dedicated to each scheduler, and we recommend you seek out the ones that apply to your environments. We include this lesson in the administration course, so you understand the architecture of AAI and the resulting configuration requirements. Automic Automation is specific in that AAI uses the Automic REST API, not the database, to source its information. When we set up the connection in the web UI, we have to specify both the REST API and the Automic Web Interface, or AWI URLs. Once we've established that the connector is working, we configure an Automic Automation connection in the AAI web UI. This system connects to the Automic REST API and acquires definition and event data. For our demo, we have three systems. The AAI server host is a Unix system. The Automic Automation system is also Unix. It's on a host called Scheduler01. We have a third system called Connector, and we're going to install the connector component on this system. Once installed, we have to configure the connection to the AAI system in a file called application.yaml. We'll check the log to establish that the connector framework is talking to the AAI server. Then we'll head to the AAI web UI and set up our connection to the Automic Automation server. AAI acquires the data using the REST API. Let's run through the procedure. First, make sure that AAI is running. For this, simply check the Windows service. Then, download the framework from the Automic Downloads website. Look for terms like distributed and integration. Unzip the file and run the executable. At the end of the installation, you're prompted for the values that go into the application.yaml file. Don't worry if your values are inaccurate because you're going to update the YAML file manually afterwards. The file system is created along with the log file. Update the YAML file with the right configuration information for the AAI instance and the name of the connector. You can restart the service. The log shows the connector talking to AAI and is not finding a defined integration, which is normal. We do that next. Connect to the AAI version 2 web interface and set up the connection to the scheduler with the Automic system name, the web interface and REST API URLs, the client and client user. Use the log. It's the best way to understand what issues you're having. Before deploying the Automic connector framework, make sure you log into client 0 in Automic and check that the variable execution trigger is enabled in UC system settings. We're in the My Documents folder. The zip file is there and we've unzipped it, which has created the Automic connector.exe. We execute it. You have to specify the directory of the connector. We create a Start Menu folder for the connector. This initiates a dialog so that you can provide the values that are added to application.yaml. We have to enter the AAI server URI, in other words, the address where the AAI web server can be reached. We're not going to cover TLS deployments, which are explained in their own module. So we enter the HTTP address with the AAI web server hostname and port 8080. The connector name is arbitrary, you choose it. Enter the hostname where the connector is being installed. We enter the admin ID and password, which we use to log into the AAI web UI. By default, this is admin and password in lowercase. The domain is JAWS. Provide the path to the logs directory. By default, the directory is called logs and is placed in the connector package directory. Provides sizing and rotation values. You can always adjust these later on based on data volumes processed by the connector. The setup was successful. The connector is able to communicate with AAI. If you get an error message, you'll need to update application.yaml manually. We'll show how to do this in a minute. A new Windows service has been created. It's set to start automatically at boots. We notice two files of specific interest in the file system. One is the application.yaml file, where we configure the connector and connection to the AI server. The other is the log. Let's check the log first. The connector started successfully. Let's assume you're getting errors. You need to configure application.yaml manually. Let's show this now. Here are the elements. For the AI server, we have the URL, the username, the password, and the domain. For the connector itself, we have the name of the connector and the hostname. Then we restart the service for these changes to take effect. We give the connection a name, which is your choice. We select the connector that we created when we defined it in the application.yaml file. Then we need to specify the Automic system name. For Automic automation users, this is the system name as defined in the automation engine's ucsrv.ini file. Then we add the URL to the Automic REST API and the client whose data we want to use in AAI. Remember, you need a dedicated connection per client. We also specify the user with privileges to the REST API in that client. If you're not sure what to use, it's a safe bet that the ID you use to log into AAI will work here. We also need the AAI URL. You're currently set up with a once-a-day acquisition of definition data. If you'd like to increase this, simply check the boxes that you need. If you check the REST API debug function, you will generate a log of the REST API outputs. The projected start time period determines how far in the future you want to go in collecting forecasted jobs. The default is set to 7 days, which is acceptable. The polling interval is set to 30 seconds by default, which is low enough to keep Automic and AAI in sync without impacting performance. AAI will wait 5 minutes by default before giving up on polling the API in the event of a no response, and 2 minutes to retry the acquisition of the definition data. The connection is established. The connector needs time to process the data currently in the scheduler and import it into AAI. This can take several minutes, and the switch may remain red for a while. No need to panic. As long as the log showed a successful connection, this will happen when AAI is caught up. Eventually, the switch turns green. As long as your elements are correct, the connection will be established after a few minutes. If you want to see the connection go active and Automic automation is quiet, run a dummy job. This will activate the connector. To establish with certainty that your connection is valid, check the log.